Okay, let me just say good afternoon to everybody. We're just starting the webinar shortly, so I just want to say good afternoon and welcome. Everyone's still joining, so do bear with us maybe 2 or 3 minutes. We'll let everybody squeeze in and then we'll officially kick off the webinar. Okay, do forgive me if I keep repeating myself, but I can see lots and lots of people joining. So just want to say good afternoon and welcome to everybody that's joining. Thank you for giving up some time to be with us today. All right, just time, maybe 1 or 2 minutes to grab yourself a drink, a tea or a coffee, and we can get the webinar underway. Okay, a few more people joining, so good afternoon to everyone. Welcome, thank you so much for joining. So in case you didn't hear me, so we'll kick off the webinar we'll start in about a minute from now. Looks like most people have managed to find us, managed to join. And I'm assuming that everyone can hear me okay and everyone can see the screen that we're sharing. Nobody seems to have mentioned anything otherwise. Okay, good afternoon and welcome. So I think we're just after 1 o'clock now, so I think we should make a start. Thank you for everyone for joining on time. So in fairness to you, we'll get the webinar underway. Okay, so this is what we're talking about today. The webinar is called PA, the Unsung Hero of a Business, and I suppose that that's maybe our opinion of how we feel towards the role of a PA, and we'll talk about that through today's discussion. What does a PA do? Why it might be a rewarding and flexible career option for some of you people, and many of you I know are already working as a personal assistant or a very similar role to that as well. So let me move on to the content for today. Just before I do that as well, let me first introduce myself. So my name's Paul Lewis. I'm the Managing Director for Pitman Training. And I have to say, I get a real buzz out of helping people to go and get the skills they need to go and get the jobs that they really want. That's something that, I feel really strong and really passionate about. So hopefully you'll see that coming through in our discussion. So let me move on to the webinar today. Again, for anyone that's just joined, good afternoon. Thank you. You're in the right place and welcome. So we're just starting the webinar now. So the webinar will run for about 45 minutes. I've allowed a bit extra in case we get lots of great questions. Please do stay to the end as well. We'll try to make it as fun and upbeat as we can so you don't get too sleepy towards the end. But please do stay the duration. We wouldn't want you to miss some of those key messages towards the end. Okay, now we've got I guess a tough job of making this as interactive as we can. Now, there are several hundred people joining us for today, which is wonderful. It's clearly a subject that's resonated with a lot of people. So whilst we can't necessarily bring you onto camera or take you off of mute, we will be interacting with you in a number of ways. Now, the first one, and I can see people already partaking in the chat feature, feel free to jump on the chat feature. You'll be familiar with it, but if you've never been on a Zoom call before, it should be at the top of your screen, whether you're using a mobile device or a laptop. Top of your screen, hit chat. I can see people doing it now. Now that's just for you to say hello, to chat amongst yourselves, to make comments, share your opinions, and have some fun on the chat feature. We won't be monitoring that because it's maybe not possible to do that today. But do tell us where you're from and what you're looking to get out of today's webinar. We've got a number of live polls as well. I think we've got 4 live polls, and this is a great way of interacting because we can actually get everyone's opinion and see what the consensus is around some of the questions that we've got today. And then the third way of interacting is the Q&A feature. So this is where we would encourage you to send some genuine questions that we'll put to our guest speaker, Gemma, towards the end of today's webinar. So as we're working through the webinar, if you have a question that comes to your mind, jump on the Q&A feature, again, positioned at the top of your screen. And towards the end, we'll be picking the very best questions. So do make sure your question stands out, and we'll pick the best questions, and you'll see if yours indeed gets answered. And it goes without saying that we are recording this webinar, and if you want a copy afterwards, you're welcome to have that. And if maybe one of your friends or colleagues couldn't make the webinar today, then you can always share the recording with them. So really, this is on to the important stuff. What are our aims and objectives for today? Well, I've already mentioned Gemma, who I will give a proper introduction to in a moment, but we'll get to know Gemma a lot more on the call today and her story. Between myself and Gemma, we'll talk about a day in the life of a personal assistant. What does that look like, and maybe how's that changed? What skills does a PA require? By all means, tell us on the chat, and we'll put that into the polls as well. What responsibilities would this person have in their daily work? And how might you pursue a career as a PA, and how would you stand out from the crowd to get hired? Gemma will be sharing lots of top tips. I can guarantee that. We'd like to also mention how Pitman training might be able to help you. So we'll come on to that a bit later. And then, as I mentioned, we will be taking your questions towards the end of the webinar. So hopefully that makes sense, and everyone's looking forward to that. So I'm, without further ado, going to introduce Gemma Walton, our guest speaker. So we're really, really lucky, really privileged to have Gemma on the call today. So some of you may already know of Gemma, or perhaps you've jumped on Gemma's website, Portfolio PA. So Gemma has been a PA or an executive assistant for well over 10 years now, since leaving education, and after working for a number of large FTSE 100 and FTSE 250 businesses across the UK as a personal assistant and an executive assistant, she's now gone on to launch her own company called Portfolio PA, which provides virtual assistant and PA services to a number of different companies across different sectors. So really knows her stuff, and she now employs a number of other virtual assistants, so her team continues to grow. And just to mention as well, as you can see from my screen here, Gemma's managed to scoop a number of industry awards from the PA Hub and also from Pitman Training as well. She was one of our finalists just 2 years ago for the PA of the Year Award. So we're in good company. So I'd like to now bring Gemma into this discussion. Gemma, how are you?
Hi, yes, nice to be here this afternoon. Yeah, I'm absolutely fine. It's nice to see those numbers counting up. I think we've got a good number of people on the webinar, so hopefully I can give plenty of advice to plenty of people.
Yeah, and thank you once again for joining us today. So we've covered off the the agenda. We've covered off the introductions. So I think we can we can get into our discussion now. So Gemma, I guess people are itching to learn more about you and your story. Many people on the webinar, I already know, are sort of curious to learn more about the personal assistant role and are already thinking about getting into that as a career option. So where did it all start for you? How did you become a personal assistant? Or do you remember that moment where you thought, this is the career for me?
So you're going to say, do I remember that far back? It was a long time ago now. So I've been a PA in one form or another for about 15 years. And the way I started, my mum's probably on this webinar, she'll be listening. She was a PA for 25 years. And I kind of saw that, obviously saw what it entailed. It's come a long way since then, but she always had kind of secretarial executive support roles. So I sort of went through education, did my degree, which was in English, which I think stood me in good stead actually. And that's one of the things that I'll come on to, is how having a good command of English can help you to get a PA role. Yeah, sort of left university in, oh dear me, 2000 and something blob, and took a temporary job just for 6 weeks in a business centre, just working on a reception desk. And after 2 days, believe it or not, the MD of one of the businesses came and sort of leaned over the desk and said, "Oh, you're quite good at that. Would you like a job as my assistant?" So kind of not traditional. A lot of people, I think, would start as an administrator or start as, different roles within a company and then move into the PA role over time. Whereas I kind of jumped in with both feet and went from there. And I was in that role for about a year, and then moved on to working in a car dealership as kind of the dealership administrator and PA to the principal there, which was an interesting place to work. I always say to anybody that's looking to be a PA, get a breadth of experience in a breadth of companies. And that was it was one of those environments where it traditionally is quite male dominated. So being one of the only women and in an executive support role was quite a challenge, but I think a good one, and kind of led me on to what came next. I worked for a number of other businesses after that, including Arup, who some of you might have heard of. Arup do civil engineering and design. So they designed the Beijing Olympic Stadium in 2008, and lots of other famous buildings, the Gherkin, if anybody's from London. So that was different again, a different sort of level. And that was actually supporting a number of leaders. That was the first time I'd really gone from supporting one person to supporting multiple directors, which is a different skill again. And it kind of gave me a grounding in doing that and in spinning multiple plates, which is something that you always need to do. Then after that, I worked at Yorkshire Water, which is a utility company here in the UK, for about 5 years. And really during that time, I worked right across the C-suite. So a lot of people shoot for that I want to be PA to the CEO, but actually I worked with HR directors, with marketing, with customer service. And that was really nice to have that broad brush and to see all those different departments, which then meant I could learn how the business worked. And then I moved on to, in about 2013, I think it was, to a global electronics distributor called Premier Farnell. And they had a really global reach. So I worked right from Chicago right through to Singapore. And we had a London office and a Leeds office. So I was there for a couple of years and just really thought, I've kind of done it. I'm at the C-suite level. I've been here for quite a while. I've always thought I could probably do something different to work with even more people in different sectors and different areas. So in 2015, I decided, right, I want to be my own boss. I'm going to go off and set up a virtual assistant business, which is Portfolio PA. And I kind of quit my job cold turkey and just really went for it and thought, do you know what, having a business, being a PA is something I already know how to do, but having a business is a whole other skill set and I need to really immerse myself in it. So I kind of 1st of November 2015, right before Christmas, which looking back, I don't know if that was the best idea, but started from cold and just reached out to some people that I already knew from all those businesses that I'd worked in and sort of said, look, I'm going to be a virtual assistant, which is, freelance PA. You can hire me for a few hours a week. Is that something you'd be interested in? And over time, it kind of grew from there, really. So I'd always worked with directors at that top level. And I think a lot of the people that came to me as clients were people who'd worked in that job and then left to start their own consultancy or their own business and maybe didn't need a full-time PA or maybe didn't have enough work. Or maybe just weren't sure what value a PA could add and wanted to kind of test the water, and take a little bit of time or a specific task or an event. And that's what I offered to them and what I continue to offer to them. And in the 5 years nearly 6 years that the business has been going, we've grown the team, as you said, from just me to now I've got a team of 4 of the ladies that work with me. And that just means that we can work with, even more different tasks. So we've all got different skill sets. Mine's very much exec support. I have a lady who does social media, somebody who does events. So we can really tailor that support that we give. And it's really nice to see that so many people are moving into the PA space, but then are thinking about that long-term track of, I want to be an EA and then a VA. So because that's exactly the path that I followed, and I would definitely recommend it if you've got aspirations. If you're already in a PA job and you've got aspirations to be your own boss, that's definitely one way you can do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, look, thank you so much for for giving us that background, the backstory as to how you became a PA, or so much more than a PA as you sit here now. So yeah, you must be really proud of what you've accomplished over that time. And a few things I took out of what you said there as well. I think you're always willing to learn and willing to grow and take on new challenges. Yeah, and you mentioned about gaining experience and you work for a few different companies, but actually within these companies for a few different people as well. So I'm sure you were amassing different skills along the way. I would imagine you knew quite a lot about HR when you were working for the HR person, and maybe did you have brushes with other directors as well? You said marketing or finance. So I'm sure that was a good way of gaining more exposure. And as well, for you to then go self-employed, building your network. That was something I really took from what you were saying there, that, people move around, don't they? People move on, people move up, people set up their own companies. So it sounded like you had a really good network when you were ready to sort of spread your wings and launch your own business. And you, no doubt, how can I put it, drew down on the, the goodwill within your network. Is that where your first few clients, if you will, is that where they sort of appeared from?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I ever do any training with people that want to be VAs, the first thing I will say is nurture your network. And that's true. If you want to be a PA, that's equally true. Think about who you know already, who you might have worked with that, maybe has a requirement for support, or knows somebody that does, or even just knows a way into a business that, has a good kind of PA offering and that, you might want to work in. I think that's really been key for me, and I know it is for others, just to know those people and have those connections. And actually, when you are an assistant in a business, stakeholder management is 9/10 of getting things done. And you need to be able to get people to do things for you and for your executive without saying, oh, Mr. CEO wants this. So that network is just so critical. And I think the kind of, sometimes it's easy to get funneled into working with one person for one person, but actually everybody else in the team and everybody else in the business is equally as important. So build those connections, build those relationships, and then use them.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we hear from the audience as well and get into some of our live polls, what would you say has been the biggest learning through your PA career so far? Yeah, that might come from something that went extremely well, or something that maybe didn't go so well. So often our biggest mistake often becomes our biggest learning, doesn't it? So for you, Gemma, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but what would you say has been your sort of biggest learning or eye opener over the last 15 years?
I would say my biggest learning, and it's not necessarily from a mistake, but it's something that I've seen and learned over time and honed, and I'm still doing it now, is to really learn the business that you work in, or you support, because there's this typical kind of very outdated notion of a PA being somebody that files and smiles, and tea and typing, the classic one. And within that, it's very easy to see, well, these are the tasks I do and this is all I do. But the value of a good PA and the way to become a good PA is to sit back and think, right, what does this business do? What does my executive do? How can I mirror that? How can I add support? And how can I, add real value, not just at a tactical doing things level, but being more strategic. And I think when you first start out in any admin role, you are a doer. Naturally, you're a doer because people come and go, oh, can you just so-and-so? And you go, yeah, great. But really take that time to sit back and to listen and to open your eyes and ears to what the business is doing and to what your industry is doing, the PA industry and the industry that you work in, whether that's electronics or utilities or legal or whatever it might be. And you'll be a better assistant for it. And I know I was telling you this story the other day, Paul, but Anne Hyatt, who used to be the PA to Jeff Bezos at Amazon, said that every time he put a book on his desk, she bought it and read it. And that was just, it was one of those things that I'd kind of done it and I'd read, industry publications and things like that. But I'd never sat and thought, what does my executive know and what can I learn from them? And then what can I feed back in as a result of what I've learned? And that's where the magic is being more than a, typer and a team maker. It's sitting at that strategic level, and then, being seen at a higher level will enable you to progress your career as well.
Yeah, yeah. And look, you've so eloquently, Gemma, just summed up the name of our webinar today. You know, it's we really struggled for some reason to come up with a fitting name. How to become a personal assistant didn't quite sort of didn't roll off the tongue too well, but we went with unsung hero of a business because we firmly believe it. We see so many people coming through our organization becoming PAs and executive assistants and such, and making, as you say, real strategic impact on a business. It's not just organizing a filing cabinet or maybe typing up a document. That may be an important part of the job, and we're maybe jumping ahead of ourselves, but I've always looked upon that role as being a real unsung hero, maybe not getting all the credit because the executive naturally will be the person to make announcements or to make presentations or to stick their necks out and make big decisions for the company. But just behind them, just marginally behind them are these wonderful executive assistants and personal assistants. So that was where we came up with the name. So look, thank you for that, Gemma. Before we get into our polls, just want to make sure there's any other questions here. Yeah, just before we get into our polls, how would you say the last 12 months, the whole sort of COVID and lockdown situation, how would you say that's impacted on the role of a PA? Do you think it has? And do you think it's changed the role long term, forever?
Yeah, it probably, everybody's roles changed to some degree. I think what it's done for me and I know for the clients I work with is it's actually reinforced the need for support and flexibility, and that agile working thing that PAs have got naturally. If you're an assistant, you're used to being flexible, you're used to thinking on your feet. No 2 days are the same, and part of it is being able to solve problems and work in different ways, and that's exactly what's happened over the past 12 months. And typically in normal times, and this stat goes around a lot, but there's evidence to suggest that your PA can make you 40% more productive. It's way more than that, and at the moment, for the past 12 months at least, a lot of execs have kind of been going, oh, right, this is all new to me. How am I productive? How do I stay productive from home? How do I manage a team remotely? And your assistant is just critical in that. And I think people are realizing that. Yeah. The working from home stuff, VAs, anybody that's a VA on this call will know we already did that. So we were kind of the Zoom experts and the remote working experts already. But I think it's just accelerated working practices that PAs were already doing. And it's really shone that spotlight on what we were just talking about, how PAs are unsung heroes. But if you think admin's not important, try running your business without it. And in the past 12 months, it would have been impossible. So yeah.
No, well, look, and then finally, before we take the first question, what I also observed myself, and there is research to support this as well, is that the role has become more strategic, certainly, and how can I put it, more senior in terms of where that person sits and maybe the respect and regard for that person in a business compared to, say, 20 or more years ago, where a PA may have been the sort of entry level into an organization, where I don't believe that's true anymore. I think it's a role that people aspire to work towards. And of course, the size of business, if you're working for one person, a one-person business, and you're their PA, then of course you're ranked number 2. But if you're working for, you mentioned Arup and Yorkshire Water, I think you said, these are big organizations, thousands of employees, I think, with those companies, right?
Yeah, definitely. Really big businesses that I think PAs nowadays largely are seen as leaders and can be seen as leaders, and sit on management teams. I know that there are businesses locally to me in Leeds that have PAs on the management team, and see it as a strategic role and see it as a really important role for the whole of the business, not just for the people that they support. I was saying this to someone the other day that the role of the PA even 10, 12 years ago was kind of at that lower level, in some areas, but a lot of the middle managers that kind of left after the recession and maybe moved into different roles, there were then gaps for PAs to fill those roles and to step up. And I think that's where the progression of the role's gone. but it's only going to continue. It's only going to well, depending on how things obviously go with things like AI, there'll be a different role for PAs to play. But there will always be a role. But it's absolutely a valid career choice for anybody, not just a job choice, but a real career choice, I think. These days.
Completely agree. So let's dive on to our first question. So let me talk it through, and then in a moment, this will a multiple choice will pop up on your screen. So we would like to know from everybody on the call today, which of the following best describes your current position? So let me just read through the options, and my colleague will just put these up on your screen. So which of the following best describes your current position? Are you in a job wanting to become a PA? Are you unemployed currently wanting to become a PA? Already employed as a PA? Employed as an executive assistant or similar? Working as a virtual assistant? Or not wanting to pursue a career at this time? So if you cast your votes on that one, this just gives us a feel. We've got a lot of people on the call today, so this just kind of gives us a feel for who's where everyone's at. Interesting to see how this one comes out, Gemma.
I'm intrigued.
I'm going to guess the first two are going to be quite popular. I think when I was talking to people who were joining us for today's webinar, it was more around, it's a career that I kind of like the look of, and maybe I'm in a job that I'm not enjoying as much, or maybe it's been affected too much by COVID, and perhaps we're seeing a lot of people change careers at the moment. They were maybe kind of drifting along nicely pre-pandemic, and now the whole landscape has changed. So maybe a couple more seconds to give us your answer, and then we'll put the answers up on the screen for everyone. Okay, right. So let's see. Wow. Okay, so we weren't far away. Lots of people in a job but wanting to change to become a personal assistant. So 30%. Some people currently unemployed, and personal assistant is a good option for them. And then, okay, quite a lot of people already a personal assistant. Employed as an executive assistant, a small number, but 3% virtual, and then some people not looking for a career as a PA at this time. So I don't know, Gemma, any surprises there, or any that jump out at you?
So yeah, I think the number of people that are already employed as a PA, I think that's great. Maybe if you're taking the next step or looking to take the next step, that might be to move out as a VA, or it might be to step up into an EA role. And just for anybody that doesn't know, an executive assistant is kind of what I would class as almost the next logical step up. EAs tend to, I'm using this word a lot, but tend to work more strategically. They'll get more involved in projects and things like that. So anybody that's already in a PA role, that's definitely a step that you could take next.
Yeah. And so what advice would you, let's go with the first two, because that does account for 52% of our audience. They're either in a job or in a, or not in a job, but wanting to become a personal assistant. What, we're going to come on to that in our later questions, but what would be your biggest piece of advice for helping these people to sort of stand out from the crowd and maybe get that job?
So there's a number of things. I was thinking about this earlier. Obviously, you've got to kind of getting on the ground first. So, any type of sort of admin-based role is always going to get you some of the key skills that you need. If you already take a look at your own skill set as well, obviously, if you're already proactive, if you're already flexible, if you've already got some of those key attributes, confident, able to deal with people, then start to look at roles where you can really use those and get the hard skill grounding to go with the soft skills you've already got. Things like HR admin, that's a really popular one. There's a lot of kind of roles well, not at the moment, but there will be. It's going to boom next year in events, in all those kind of fields. You don't have to go straight for the PA role, and you don't even have to go for an employed role. Try and volunteer. I did some volunteer work before I graduated, actually, with the University of Sheffield, just doing student admin. And it was only a couple of hours a week, but it really gave me an insight into what that role might be like. And just give me a chance to test it. So I think, those are my kind of top two things. Just get in, and then once you're in a business, or once you've got that grounding and skill set, then start to look at how you might move into a PA role. And the third thing, I guess, is, we're on a Pitman webinar, is training and upskilling yourself. It's just so invaluable. Because, you know, if you spend the time that you've got, you know, a lot of people are quieter now because of COVID. Use this time really well. Invest in your training, invest in yourself, and think about not just things like Microsoft Word. All those sorts of things are obviously important, and Office Suite, but think about your soft skills as well. Think about stakeholder management, dealing with people, you know, being proactive, confident. If any of those things are gaps for you, use this time now to train, and then use that newfound kind of knowledge and skills to get yourself to where you want to be.
Brilliant. Hey, look, amazing answer. That was really comprehensive, and I think clearly, yes, training is one option for people always. But I loved what you said about the you know, volunteering as well, because it can feel like a chicken or egg situation, can't it? You know, that well, I'm you know, I haven't got the experience, but you know, no one wants to give me the experience, so I'm a bit stuck. But I think volunteering is a great, you know, I didn't realize you'd previously done that yourself, Gemma. So we'll jump on to poll number 2. I'll just ask my colleague to take that off the screen. Thank you. So again, I'll just read through this and the possible answers, and we're asking you to pick the one that you feel strongly about. So what do you think is the biggest barrier to getting hired as a PA? Is it lack of skills, lack of work experience, lack of confidence, employers' prejudice, maybe, you know, sort of age or something like this? Too many applicants, not enough jobs. So have a think and then just cast your votes on that one. You've probably preempted, you know, a little bit of this, Gemma, with what you were just saying in terms of what do you think it will be, by the way? I'll be interested to get what would you have voted on this particular question?
Do you know, I think confidence is a big one. You know, very often, not always, but very often, people that want to become PAs are women. You know, I vote to change that. It's not just a girl's job, but it is true at the moment. And I think, you know, there's this thing, isn't there, of women will look at a job description and think, oh, I can't do any of that. Whereas men will sometimes think, I can do 20%, so I'll just go for it. So yeah, confidence is a big one, but you know, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So I would just encourage people to go for it. And like I was just saying, get that volunteer experience, prove to yourself you can do it, and then, you know, go from there.
Yeah, love it. Well, let's have a look at the answers here. Okay, so quite far out in front is lack of work experience. So I'm really pleased you've already talked to that one, Gemma. Maybe there's, you know, we can go a bit deeper in that discussion. Lack of confidence was not far behind, and too many applicants, not enough jobs. And we talked about that one on some of our previous webinars as well, because I think certainly with the pandemic and everything being online, it does seem like there's, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people applying for the same jobs. So don't know there, Gemma, if you would have any advice, you know, if you were in that very position, you know, how would you stand out from the crowd, you know, hoping that your experience and your credentials, you know, spoke volumes, but what else, you know, to try and separate yourself from the other 100 applicants?
So I think there's a number of things, and there's kind of 2 tracks. So if you definitely wanted to go down, you know, the route of becoming an employed PA, think about who you might know already. Like we've already said, who's in those businesses that you might want to work in. And actually, sometimes it can be helpful to just apply speculatively and say, look, I'm looking to get into the PA role. If you do know of any openings, here's my CV. That works more often than it doesn't. It's a cold technique, but you know, certainly when I've done recruitment for PAs in the past, we've kept those CVs of people that we thought had solid experience, and we have gone back to them. You know, at the minute it is tough with COVID. I think in the UK, certainly we're starting to see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel with that. Mm-hmm. But at the minute, yeah, anything you can do to, like I was just saying, upskill yourself, really promote that you've invested in your own development and your own training. People will see that. You know, you can list all the jobs you've had and everybody will do that, but what will differentiate you is that little box at the bottom that says skills, experience, qualifications. All those sorts of things will really elevate you. You know, we used to get some really impressive lists of courses that people had been on, different skills that they'd learned in their own time, and that just shows commitment to a role, and commitment to succeeding. And the other way to do it is if you're an existing PA or you've got an admin background, think about becoming a VA, because that's something you can do yourself. You don't need to apply. You can just set up your own business. It's not an easy option. It's as difficult as anything, you know, but it's worth it. And if you think you've got a business inside you, then I would encourage people to go down the self-employed route.
And I think that's a great, maybe it's not the obvious answer. Maybe it is the obvious answer. I think, too many applicants, not enough jobs. Yeah, create your own job, your own company. So I think that's great advice. And again, needs a big dollop of confidence. So look, thank you for everyone for taking part in that particular question. We've got a couple more for you. So we'll move on in the interest of time. Hopefully everybody's already getting some value from the discussion today, so please hang with us as well, because we've got more discussion coming up. So poll number 3, what responsibilities do you think a PA most commonly has? So we're going to allow you to pick 2 answers. So if you could pick the top 2 answers on this particular question, that would be great.
So this one's really interesting, isn't it? Because this will have changed massively, I would imagine, for most people in the last 12 months. And I also think this is quite difficult to define, because being a PA myself and having been one, there are no 2 days that are the same, no 2 tasks that are the same. So yeah, I'll be intrigued to see what.
Yeah, this was not easy to try and condense into those 7 or 8 boxes, and yeah, we probably could have put 50 options and it wouldn't have been enough. But what would be your top 1 or top 2 on this one, Gemma?
So I think most commonly calendar management is a big thing, and it's a real skill. People get in such a mess with the diary so easily. And if you don't send your exec to the right place at the right time, it can impact the whole of the rest of the business. They don't make a deal or make a meeting. It's a critical skill. I think any and all of the others really. I do personally a lot of document production, a lot of board packs. I've just proofread a book, but it's so broad. It can be anything. And I was thinking about, as I was coming into this webinar, what's the weirdest thing I've ever been asked to do, or the most out there. And when I worked at Yorkshire Water, I once had to take a giant inflatable tap and go and promote the business out in Leeds city centre. And PAs do get asked all these weird and wonderful things, and that's part of the joy of it, is you never know. Yeah. And then you've got these skills for life, not a giant tap. That's probably not going to be helpful again, but some of the other stuff, it's in your pocket then, and you can take it and use it in future roles.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's have a look at what the audience came up with on this one. Wow, look at that. Maybe they heard you, Gemma, but I think it's I think it's absolutely to be expected, isn't it? And as you say, it's so much more than just dropping meetings into diaries. If it's a big event, if it requires flights or transport or accommodation, and it can be getting that wrong could be really costly, couldn't it? We've got lifestyle management. Have I got that right? Yes. So lifestyle management was a big one as well. So we put flowers and paying bills. There's no end to that list, kind of making sure that pet dogs looked after, or making sure that, maybe a Christmas card goes in the letterbox and things like that. Okay. And then really it's, event and travel management. I think you're absolutely right, by the way. I think there will be this, pent up requirement for events and travel once more. So I think that could be, we could see a real resurgence on events and travel. So that's interesting. And if you could, Gemma, maybe think back to when you were employed because now maybe you're even more varied because you've got different clients, different sectors, different size businesses. But think back to when you were employed as a PA. What did a typical day look like? And I know that's really hard, but if you could, what would 9 to 5? What would you see yourself doing on those typical days?
So I think 9 to 5 is one of those misconceptions. I think being a PA, if you set the right boundaries, it can absolutely work for you and be flexible. I think because of the nature of the relationship you often have with the people you support, it's not always a 9 to 5, and that can work both ways. You might support your exec heavily 8 till 11, and then there's a bit of a break and you can go off and then come back. But no 2 days are the same, like I've already said. I think there's always, the first thing I would always do in the morning, you always check in with your exec, you always check in on the emails that have come in overnight, making sure that they've got everything they'll need for their day, which you should have probably done the day before, but there's always a quick check-in. And I know that some of the assistants that I personally work with and have worked with at the minute, there's always that daily 5 or 10 minutes where you just touch base with your boss, and you're always talking to them and checking things and making sure you're on the same page and that your priorities are their priorities. And then after that, it can be anything. So you might join a management team meeting, not just to take the minutes. Very often people will input. PAs are often asked for their opinions. Same goes for things like drafting documents and papers. I was always asked, can you write me a piece on this? And that's where that knowing the business comes in. Can you draw information from these 5 stakeholders and put it all together and make it sound cohesive?
Mm-hmm.
There's that lifestyle bit as well. Not everybody does this. And there are private PAs that do it really well, but sometimes there's a bit of care around, it might be buying gifts, or it might be ensuring that your exec doesn't forget someone's birthday or whatever that is. Yeah, and it is a real mixed bag. Pre-COVID, there was a lot of travel booking involved that might take 2 or 3 hours typically in a week, and just making sure those itineraries were up to speed. But yeah, it's anything and everything, and there's kind of a typical structure, but there's no typical day, and the industry you work in can affect that as well. So if you're a legal PA, your day will be totally different from if you're a medical PA, or if you work in a completely different firm. Again, it's sector specific, and then EA and PA will have different days again. So as an EA, you might manage a team of PAs, you might have that responsibility, whereas if you're doing kind of a lower role to look into getting into being a PA, you might be just doing admin. So it's a real mixed bag.
Yep. Well, look, that gives everyone a flavour, especially those people that have had no experience or exposure. The 20-something% of people who are already PAs will know a lot of what you've just said. So last poll that we're putting out there, which of the following skills or training do you believe would help you to get hired as a personal assistant? So again, we'll let you pick 2 answers on this one. So if you want to have a look down the list and pick your 2 top answers. And I think you've already said, Gemma, this is something that people absolutely do look for, especially if they've got piles and piles of applicants. It's, which ones have got the exact skills or the most skills that would relate to this opportunity or this job. I'm not going to ask you just yet, because I don't want you to influence the audience here. So we'll give them another second, and then over to you. So what would be, the standout one for you on that list, Gemma?
I think from this list, obviously these are the hard skills. I would say Microsoft Office is key, or something like G Suite. That's becoming more popular. But certainly a package like that. And I think project management, everything a PA does is a project, one way or another. Your boss's diary is a project. So yeah, those 2, I'd be surprised if they don't come up. Okay,
well, there's the answers. Okay, so Microsoft, maybe we shouldn't have put it as option A. Naturally, that okay, project management, I think ties in. So you got the top 2 there, Gemma, and then IT computer skills is so broad, isn't it? But yeah, I think increasingly those skills are really important here. And yeah, HR is, again, may be affected by the type of sector. Fast typing, there are always courses around fast typing and things like this. So okay, very very interesting. But Microsoft being, or as you say, the Google Suite is what you were talking about, and there are other platforms and other different office suites that people can use, but Microsoft still seems to be the front runner. So look, thank you to everybody for taking part in those polls. So I wanted to mention in a moment, what some of our students, many of our students are on the call today, by the way. So welcome everybody. I'm sure there's a large percentage who have already studied with Pitman, or partway through their studies. So by all means, jump in the chat and tell us what you're studying and where you're studying. We'd be really interested to find out. But Gemma, is there anything else before we sort of move the discussion on? Anything that we haven't touched on, given some of the answers there? Is there anything you wanted to sort of throw out to the audience to to sort of help them? Any top tips at this point you wanted to share with anyone?
I would just say, if this is a career that you're considering, taking up, if a PA is something that appeals to you, I just think the opportunities are endless. And I think, as I've already touched on, it used to be seen as a job, and it's not. It's a career now, and it's a real opportunity to work with some of the the best business people in the country and the world, It's not just tea and typing. There's so much more to it and so much more value you can add. You know, it's a difficult time for everybody work-wise, but the opportunities are there, and the value and the role of the assistant is changing and is evolving and is more valuable than ever, in lots and lots of ways. So I would just say, if you're thinking about it, by all means, test the waters, do a little bit of volunteering, try it out. But it's something I never thought I would get into, but I don't regret it. And I've had such a broad breadth of experience and met so many fantastic people that, you know, I can only say go for it.
Brilliant. Well, look, so do hang on, because we've still got a few minutes left. I'll leave these up on the screen for just a second. I think for a lot of people on the call today, it's changing jobs, changing careers, taking any sort of risk or leap of faith is daunting, isn't it? And we always point to our students that have already gone and done that. So you can see Charlie's story here, talking about how she achieved her secretarial diploma and how that's helped her on her career journey. Helen McAllister, so she did a professional executive PA diploma with AAT. So she asked to put an accounting spin on her PA diploma, which was great for her, and you can see that she's benefited from it massively, and all the support that she got from Pitman training. And then finally, Esther did the professional executive assistant diploma, and you can see her comments. Her advice for others would be just go for it. You won't regret taking a Pitman course. So thank you, Esther, for giving us such nice feedback. So at this point, I would like to bring in my colleague, Alexis. Now, Alexis has been supporting our students for, I think, over 9 years, and she does a marvelous, marvelous job. Her official title with Pitman Training is course advisor. I would go as far as to say, career coach, career consultant, because when people come and meet with Alexis, often they're not clear or not sure as to what path they need to take to advance their career. So welcome, Alexis. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for inviting me along.
No, pleasure. So conscious on time, but I did have 2 or 3 questions I just wanted to fire at you and get the sort of expert opinion, because a lot of people on this call will be, looking at Pitman training as an option for helping and pursuing their career. So you've been helping, people for over 9 years. We worked out the other day, that's certainly into the thousands now of people that you've spoken to or directly helped. So I know you find that extremely rewarding. But let's go back to one of those earlier questions. Somebody books a consultation with you and says, Alexis, I've got no prior experience whatsoever with admin or PA work, but I want to go there. What would you recommend to that person?
Well, anybody who is looking at getting into the executive PA kind of role, I'd always recommend go and take a look at the Exec PA Diploma, even from the point of having no experience or having a really large career break on the CV. That's the one that you would need to take a look at first and foremost. That particular diploma, it consists of 18 modules or subjects, if you like. So it's really, really comprehensive in terms of the skills and the knowledge that it'll give you. 14 of those subjects are actually classed as core, which means they're mandatory. So Pitman's really taken out the guesswork in terms of helping you kickstart your career, because they design the core modules to cover what most of the job ads for those particular roles are asking for. And then with the remaining 4 modules, we call those electives, and you can choose like literally anything from over 250 different subjects that we've got. So as you mentioned before, you might want to keep it quite general and appeal to a really broad range of roles, or you might want to give it a bit of a finance flavor or legal or medical. And this is where your expert course advisor will be able to help you to tailor the diploma to your individual needs.
Yeah. And thank you for that, Alexis. And I guess the follow-on question from that, well, you mentioned one of our diplomas there. Sorry to everybody, this slide is it's a bit small to read, but you do get a copy of the presentation from today. But you can see right at the top, it says Professional Executive PA Diploma. How long might that take, Alexis? I know that's a difficult question because it depends how much available time people have, but what would be your advice on that one?
Like I say, it depends on how much time you've got. So everyone's different. Have that chat with your course advisor. What's going to work really, really well for a recent college leaver isn't necessarily going to work so well for a full-time worker with school-age children. So you can actually pick and choose the days, the times, the hours that you want to study. So, you know, be realistic with yourself. What sort of time could you spare? And then when you have a chat with the course advisor, you know, go armed with that information and they'll be able to design something that's going to fit for you.
Cool. And next question would be, what I think we found out on our survey that around about 30% of people on this call are already in a PA role, but if they wanted to advance their career, maybe into becoming, you know, an executive assistant, what would you recommend to that person?
We could take a look at doing skills assessments with those people to help them identify any gaps. We could take a look at the jobs that they're, you know, going to be applying for to identify gaps as well, and then we can design something to suit. So, you know, it doesn't have to be the Exec Pa Diploma. You could take a look at something like the Microsoft Office or, you know, professional development. There's loads of different ways that we can, you know, tailor it to them.
Yeah, and I guess a more general question as well. So the three lovely ladies that were on the screen a moment ago, they all studied through the pandemic. So I think they did come to the centre, but a large amount of their training was done remotely because of the lockdown situation. So how's that worked in the last 12 months, Alexis? You know, you were supporting people for many years before that, but you know, how's that been for you and how's that been for the students?
Well, we've still managed to get lots of people started. We've been giving them phone, email, and Zoom support. We've been doing our initial career consultations via Zoom. I can't lie, though, I'm really looking forward to getting back into the training centre. At the moment, I'm offering career consultations over Zoom with the option of a virtual sort of tour of the learning platform. But I don't think you can beat actually going into the training centre, having a brew with us, meeting the team, you know, having an actual hands-on demonstration. And that way you can make absolutely sure that you are investing with the right company, you know, your time and money.
Excellent. And I totally agree, by the way. So assuming not everyone on this call knows who Pitman Training are and what we typically do, you know, we've got a national network of training centres. So across the world, just over 80 training centres, and in the UK and Ireland, around about 70. So every major town, city, we've got you covered. And as Alexis says, you can book a consultation, no obligation, free of charge, and talk to us about your career options and what you're looking to achieve. So yeah, great advice there, Alexis. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is stay on if you can, because we'll move into some of the general questions in just a second. So let me just move the screen. Here we go. So it says questions with Gemma, but we'll extend that to questions with Gemma and Alexis. So bear with me just a moment while I'm bringing up the questions from the audience on my other screen. Alexis, is there any other sort of top tip that you would share with people who are looking to sort of study or gain experience to pursue this type of career?
Be realistic in terms of how much time you've got to dedicate to this, and like Gemma said, have a look at the different industries that are around, and you know, take a look at what they're asking for. Chances are, because we've got such a massive range of courses, we'll be able to find something to fit and build for you. Yeah,
excellent. So I've got a question. I'm going to come to Gemma first, and let me just bring it up here. So I don't know the person's name, but after having a large gap, 10 years for bringing up a family, I'm trying to upskill. What is your advice on how to get a job after such a long gap on my CV? So bit of a tricky one there, Gemma, but someone's been, you know, away from the workplace for 10 years and they're looking to try and, you know, come back and fill the gap. Yeah, fill the 10-year gap. So what would be your advice to that person?
So I think actually one of the ways to kind of frame that would be to say, look, these are the skills that I learned, you know, in that gap, both the training you might have done and the qualifications you might have done, if any. Obviously, most people don't have the time to do a lot of training and to have a family as well. But you know, the soft skills you will have gathered during that 10-year period will be massive. You know, your confidence will have grown, your stakeholder management, you know, dealing with nurseries and teachers and, you know, hundreds of different parents, all those sorts of things. That's all kind of teaching you things and giving you confidence that you can use in the workplace. You know, use some of the things that you've learned and developed, and the experiences that you've had that weren't within the workplace but that are transferable. And I do always say that looking after executives is not unlike looking after babies sometimes. So, you know, there's always that angle if you wanted to play around with it a little bit. But the other thing to say is, you know, if you're finding it difficult, maybe do look into some kind of upskilling training, particularly around IT, because those systems move quicker than anything. You know, look at things like G Suite. That is a new system to a lot of businesses, even over the last 12 months. But people are stepping away from, you know, traditional Microsoft. Make sure you're up to speed with things like Zoom or your remote working. Just kind of invest some time in making sure that you're in the best position you can, and don't let that gap hold you back. You know, you've got those skills, you've done the work, and you know you can do that job. And it's a mindset thing a lot of the time. And an employer should always hire the right person for the role at that time. They shouldn't look back at, oh, well, this person had a gap, because you're still the same person you were, and you've probably even learned more than someone that might have been in a job. So, you know, position it that way. And I think as long as you back yourself and believe in yourself, then once you've got through the door, that helps to carry you through.
Yeah. And so I'm conscious on time, but I do want to maybe come up with 2 or 3 more questions. So I'm going to ask you for the quick fire answer.
Yep.
So I'll come to Alexis for this one. Is 40 years old too old to study the courses necessary to become a PA?
Absolutely not.
I'm currently working as a receptionist, that person says.
Okay, so you've got plenty of experience and administration skills to be able to build on there. And 40, you've still got a lot of working years left. So go for it. Absolutely.
Yep, totally agree. Question for Gemma is, sorry, what have I done with it here? Right, if I don't have a big existing network, can I still become a VA? How would I market myself?
Yeah, so that's a big question. There's lots of different ways, and it depends on who you want to market to. So first of all, you would think about your ideal client and who they might be, and then think about where they would hang out. You know, would it be on LinkedIn? Would it be, you know, when we get back to physical events, where would they kind of hang out in person? So you don't have to have a big existing network, but you do need to know how to grow one over time, and to be in the right places for the right people and the right work. So yeah, that's the quick fire answer. I'm trying not to ramble, but it's a big question. And if anybody's got a burning desire to look into that more, I can talk to them about it. You know, drop me a line and I'm happy to chat.
Yep, cool. Quick question for you again, Gemma, is what about social media in a PA's world? Has that dropped into the role? Is that an expectation that a PA would need to be good and adept at social media?
I think probably more in a small business. You know, in bigger business, they tend to have social media managers, but it's definitely a good tool and skill to have and to know how to use. You know, if your exec gets stuck saying, how do I post something on Facebook? It's always good to know. And in a smaller business, you might be able to pick up those duties as well.
Yeah, cool. And I'm going to put you on the spot again, Gemma. Could you, in as few words possible, give us the distinction between PA, EA, and VA, just in case we've confused anybody today? Okay,
PA is personal assistant, and that's typically, but not always, more tactical work, more doing, but you do still have to be a thinker. Executive assistant is EA, and that's the next step up. So that might be managing a team of PAs or supporting more than one boss, or working at a higher level, maybe with a CEO, and doing more strategic work. So more of the thinking, more of the learning the business, and all of that. And then VA is self-employed PA or EA. So you do similar work, but you work for yourself and for a number of clients.
Yep. Brilliant. And I think we're almost out of time. So I just want to make sure there's, is there anything else here? Yeah, last question. What would be, so a few people have said, if PA is no longer the entry role, what is? what is the, the best entry level role that might then work you towards a PA job?
So I think, any admin role is a good place to start, whatever that's legal admin, HR admin, or just admin assistant. There are junior PA roles coming out as well, and there are apprenticeships that you can do. So just look at anything that gives you that broad skill set and background in admin.
Yep. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you both. Just hang on there while I try to wrap everything up, and thank everybody for their time today. So I've put on your screen just some snapshot information about Pitman training and how we might be able to help you. As I said, if you're not familiar with who we are and what we do, we're a international training company, and we help people to with self-paced learning, and it can be done in our centres that I mentioned, or it can be done remotely, or a blend of the two. We cover just about every area of office skills and IT skills that you can possibly think of, moving heavily into computing and digital as well. So you can just see some of the things that we cover on the screen there. Lots of diplomas. You mentioned Alexis summarised how a diploma can work for people. And you can work through it at your own pace with support as well. And I have to stress that yes, we know there are, millions of online training courses, but the beauty of coming on board with Pitman Training is you do get your own personal learning coach. And that's really, really important, because every study will tell you if you try and study on your own in isolation, you most likely give up, or you most likely run out of steam or get stuck, and it's the most frustrating thing ever when you've got a question and no one can answer it for you. So that's what Pitman Training aim to do so well. We have lots of different courses. If you just wanted to brush up on your typing, or brush up on your Microsoft skills, or whatever it might be, HR skills, there's always a course that we have that we can offer to you. And a lot of what we offer as well is backed up with an accreditation. So on top of the Pitman Training seal of approval, the Pitman Training certificate, you will often get one of these extra credentials as well. And all that's left to say is thank you to everybody that's lasted this long on the webinar and survived the duration. We really, really thank you for joining us. I hope we've delivered some value to you today, and I hope you've enjoyed the discussion as well. If you've got those questions that you put on the Q&A feature, we will try and answer those. I can see my colleagues in the background have been answering them as we've gone through. What will happen as well is you will get a thank you email from your local Pitman Training Centre. So they will get in touch with you either today or tomorrow and let you know how they can possibly help. I want to say a big thank you to Alexis and a big thank you to Gemma. Thank you for giving us your input and your stories. And I know I've put you on the spot and asked some curveball questions. So thank you so much for helping me out today. And look, the call to action, if I can call it that, if you're thinking about, moving on your career, by all means, book a career consultation with us. Jump on our website. I can see that most people on the call today are either from the UK, Ireland, or Kenya, and you've got your website address in the corner of the screen. So jump on the website, hit the inquiry button, and you can book yourself a career consultation over the coming days or weeks. And all that's left to say is, good luck. Whatever position you're in right now, good luck on your career journey. And you know where we are if you need us. And do be sure to drop onto Gemma's website as well if you know any companies out there that need a really, really good virtual assistant. So look, thank you everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Paul. Bye.
Thanks everybody.